Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to God's glory and that of his kingdom. A man I've been privileged to work with on the business of protecting our country against, particularly, the Chinese Communist Party, the greatest threat we've ever faced, bar none, is Colonel Grant Newsham, United States Marine Corps retired, former Foreign Service officer, as well as a successful businessman out in the Western Pacific. These days, a fellow with the Japan Strategic Studies Institute, as I recall. He is also a senior fellow of our Center for Security Policy and a great contributor to this program. We're always delighted to catch up with him. Welcome back, Colonel.
Okay.
Good to have you
Well,
with us,
thank
sir.
you. Glad to be here.
A lot to talk about. Let's start with this massive parade that only the North Koreans can pull off something of this kind of extravagance with, it seems, armies of automaton like
Hmm.
North Koreans dragooned into demonstrations of loyalty to Kim Jong un. But the backdrop of it was a very impressive display of military hardware. And I was interested in sort of your take on it in general, and in particular, Colonel, the extent to which it seems to suggest the very strong help that the Chinese Communist Party has given the North Koreans in acquiring and fielding such capabilities.
Yes, if China wasn't helping North Korea, or the North Korean regime would not exist, and North Korea wouldn't have nuclear weapons, and it wouldn't have the constantly improving missile systems to deliver them.
Yeah.
China is key to everything, and we have wasted too many years thinking that China didn't want North Korea to have these things, and that China was our friend and really did want to help us resolve this problem. They don't, and they never have.
Yeah. I've been told that they have a sort of phrase for the character of the Chinese attitude towards North Korea, and that is that it is the North Korean that is a rabid dog on a leash, and that the leash is in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. Does that seem about right to you? That it's convenient for the Chinese to have these so-called bad boys in the neighborhood, and that the perception that they control them is something that they've used to considerable benefit strategically.
That's as good as any. That's a good description. The Chinese, of course, always pretend that there's just nothing they can do to tell the North Koreans what to do or to have any control over them, which is just an outright lie. But if it's worked well with Americans of both parties for a long time, you can't really blame them for using it.
Yeah,
If
we keep
China
rewarding them for it, no
well,
less.
and you think about it, it's not just North Korea. There's this expression that you hear it a lot. Well, we need China's help with fill in the blank,
Right.
climate change,
Climate change. Right.
transnational crime, even though most of it in Asia comes from China,
Yeah.
and we need
Fentanyl.
their. Well, how dumb can you be? And but we
Really.
have, and North Korea is right up there. We must have
Hmm.
China's help to deal with North Korea, and yet considering that China are the ones who have kept North Korea afloat, they have kept them armed, and it is in China's interest. And they'll, if you don't even have to listen very hard to understand it, to split the U.S. South Korea alliance to get Americans off the peninsula, but at a minimum, just to keep things roiled. So this is a huge distraction for the Americans, for the civilized countries, that they have to go easy on China because they think China is going to help them with North Korea, and it prevents us from focusing our efforts on China's bad behavior and what it's doing to Taiwan, what it's doing to Japan. So this is we've been played for decades.
Yeah, and it's very successfully. One of the leitmotifs, apparently, of this speech that Kim Jong Un gave on the occasion was that his military, whose 90th anniversary he was celebrating on this occasion, had to be preparing for nuclear war. Um, to the extent that this is, again, something that is not scripted in Beijing, at least approved by Beijing. Would you expect, in the event that China goes for it in Taiwan, that we would see some kind of engagement by the North against the South, or who knows who all else, maybe the Japanese, maybe even us for that matter, as a means of distracting us or otherwise tying us down?
Oh, I'd say almost certainly. I would bet like all the money I have on that. If China does make a move on Taiwan, that you can expect a diversionary effort from North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be against South Korea, against Japan, against America, against all of us, but something that keeps our attention focused up north while China makes its move down to the south. I think
Yeah.
that would be pretty close to 100%
Wow.
certainty that that would happen.
Tying us down, not least, presumably, with the assets that we would have up in that region, on the peninsula as well as in Japan. Um, Colonel, as you know, we're at the end game of Moon regime in South Korea. There was some talk. I had a friend of ours, Tara O, on the other day talking about one of the things that the majority in the parliament, now outgoing, I guess, may undertake as a kind of farewell gift to the Moon administration is um, a law prohibiting investigations of the Moon administration. Can you give us a status report on that? Has that come to pass? Do you know? And what are the likelihoods of more mischief being made by President Moon Jae-in on his way out the door?
Well, that law that you mentioned, it's definitely coming down the road. I don't know if it's been passed yet. And that is what it intends to do. It's pretty brazen, although it is sort of couched in nice sounding language of just wanting to prevent investigative bodies from being too strong. But what it is intended to do is to weaken the ability of the new administration to investigate wrongdoing, criminal activity, and say it's when a regime or administration is trying to pass a bill like this at the last minute, well, common sense tells you what the reason for it is, and that what Dr. O did mention is a problem that the new conservative administration in South Korea is going to face, and that is that there is a large majority of the opposition now,
Mm.
the Korean Democratic Party, in the National Assembly as a result of a very dodgy election held in 2020.
Yeah, which you have investigated closely and found to have been fraud ridden, and unfortunately, it seems perhaps a test bed for some of the fraud that was perpetrated in our own election of that year. And this is again part of what has made the Moon government so worrying is that their behavior, their priorities, their policy initiatives were really problematic from the point of view of strong U.S. South Korea ties. I guess, though, we can say that we're not likely to see in his successor any further dalliance with this idea of an end of war agreement, which we've talked about before as a
Mm.
formula for basically fracturing that U.S. South Korean alliance. No?
That's right. Yeah, the new administration, these are pretty sensible people. And it's really moved things back from this very pro left, extreme left leanings of the previous administration. So it's a relief, I'm sure, in the White House that's got plenty of problems on its hands right now. It didn't need another one to keep going with South Korea and even get worse.
I have to believe that there were some in the White House, at least, who were only too happy to go down that road. So let's
Yeah.
just be grateful that we seem to be relieved of that particular danger, at least for the moment. We're going to come right back with more with Colonel Grant Newsham about the Solemn Islands, India, and more in the Pacific Theater right after this.